Hello, everybody. My name is Rob, and suppose that for a half a minute that it is game night, and suddenly everybody had somewhere else, anywhere else to be, and all of a sudden you are left alone and you are sitting there by yourself, but you still kind of want to play your favorite tabletop RPG, and for you, that happens to be a little tabletop RPG called a Mausritter, which is a game about brave mice in a dangerous world, and you are playing different characters, different woodland critters, but mostly mice, but other things like sparrows and hamsters and shrews and rats if you would like to. But otherwise, it's not just D&D, but with mice, but it has its own little unique take on OSR like everything else does. However, what if nobody showed up to game night? Well, if you'll allow me, I would like to introduce to you my solitaire map making, journaling, and solitaire map making and journaling supplement for a Mausritter that I am calling Mouse Crawl. What is Mouse Crawl, and why and how does it play? And how would you get something like this started? Well, first of all, in any tabletop RPG, in order to begin playing, we need characters. Fortunately, I already have a batch of characters started up, and I already have a game running that's been running for a couple of weeks now, and would love to complete it sometime soon. Uh, we'll see, without dying, preferably. Uh, but again, what do you need before you start to play a tabletop RPG? Again, you need characters, and I have some pre-made characters right here. But in order to play this supplement for Mausritter, you do in fact need to have a sort of a Mausritter-like character, like a mouse or a sparrow or a rat, I suppose, or a hamster, or I don't know, maybe a small bat. Um, but again, you need to have a character, and Mausritter on its website at mausritter.com, and luckily it has a character generator that I uh, used to create part of these characters. Some of these characters, not all of them. I came up with the names of some of them, um, but I created most of these characters on my own. But fortunately, if you want a quick character, you can go to mausritter.com and make a character like that. Uh, However, one of the differences between this supplement and actual Mausritter itself is the way that the character cards are set up. In the solo supplement, the character cards are set up like this, like a kind of a regular, normal, your everyday tabletop RPG character card. But in the other, in actual Mausritter, Mausritter has a little item card system where all of its items are on their own little cards, and you can move around and adjust the the items as you see fit, as you try to save space and you try to um, collect items and manage your items. And it is a fun and unique take on the item inventory management. And here's some from uh, another supplement that I backed on Kickstarter. These item cards would look like this, and you would maneuver them around your inventory, but we are using a cardless inventory. I want to say I came up with this style of character sheet on my own because some of it came naturally when I started this game, but there are already um, cardless, what they're calling cardless inventory character sheets out there. So I don't know, who knows? And I was playing and I was using Cairn. Um, Before that, and Cairn also has a list style inventory system like more traditional TTRPGs do. So we don't live in a vacuum. And if you say, well, but I do, no, you don't. So again, I would like to say I came up with this uh, current character sheet on hand, just off the cuff. But I do not know, so I'm not going to give myself that one. But we do need to give ourselves characters. And you need to fill out one of these character sheets. There is a very nice cardless character sheet out there that is fairly popular, and it's pretty easy to find. You can find it on itch.io. You could probably find it in the mausritter library as well. So, first of all, you need a character, so you can go ahead and need to create your character. You can either use the generator, or you can roll up your character like you would in any other. Ooh, that's a nice one. In any other tabletop RPG, it's roll 3d6, keep 1, and then you would fill out your history, your backstory, what your mood is like, uh, and you get to pick some weapon or other. Not too much attack options for magic users, but it is not. I would say there is magic in this game, but it's kind of like somebody were to think they had a lighter and they think they have a fire rune. But there is actually a firebolt rune, and there is magic, and those are real. But all in all, there's not much offensive types for magic. There is two offensive types for magic, but they are not that easy to find. So, and not that easy to come up with in character creation, I believe. So, once you have your character created and your character sheet filled out, you're going to need to grab your dice. I grab these dice from various places on the internet and various shops and things like that. And then you're going to need at least an A4 size of paper. Now, as you can see, there's roughly only 12 points here. Roughly 12 points, 12 to 13 points. I forget, I didn't count them all. And this is in this little corner of the map. This area isn't even touched. And this is only there because I was doing an example for another video, but I forgot how the system worked, and the video went bye-bye. So, again, what do you need? You need at least an A4 size piece of paper. The larger pieces of paper, I would like to caution you against getting, because the larger pieces of paper means the longer your adventure will be, but the more time you will spend there. In general, games, or a session, that I like to call it, is supposed to take about 12 turns, and it's roughly, I believe, a half hour to an hour and a half per turn. I haven't actually averaged it out yet, so I do not know myself. But that is what I can come to conclude so far. So, you need a A4 piece of paper. You can give it a fancy little title if you want to, maybe some more information. But before you start, we need to figure out how difficult the map is going to be, how often you run into monsters. Now, in order to figure that out, we need to roll a 2d20 and pick the lowest. For this, oh, we got tie. Why do we get the good rolls when it doesn't count? We would have 4, and our rating would be 4. So when you would roll for encounters, or roll for a monster to appear and attack your party, you need to be equal to or under the monster map rating, and in this case it is 10. And let's see. We would roll 2d20 and again pick the lowest. Why is it pick the lowest? Well, because I want to subvert expectations, and I like subverting expectation because sometimes when you subvert expectations, people are like, oh, that's refreshing, that's something different, and then they go in, they hit a big 20, and they're like, yay, and then they realize it, and they go, oh no, oh no. So again, so we have our map, we have our difficulty, we gave it a bit of flavor. So what else do we need to get started? Well, again, we need to have a bestiary or bestiary that it's called. I am using a bestiary that I made specifically to run random games, random adventures, random or just to add something to your current adventure. It is called um, an underworld understudy, and you can find it on itch.io from and it is by Claybrick Entertainment, which is me on itch.io, which is where you will be able to find this. It is still currently a work in progress, but this is good enough for me because it's good enough for what I want to use it for, and every single time that I sell a copy of one of these, it goes into making the game a bit better. So, you can use other bestiaries, but what you need to do when you use them is you need to take a look at the monsters, and you need to go, and you need to think to yourself, and maybe even change a number or two, and because you are saying, I think this monster is the least difficult, and I think this monster is the most difficult, which is what the 1 to 20 scoring system is. It goes from the easiest to the most difficult. So, when you roll, and you roll under, you hope that you are get the lower number so you don't have to fight half giant sorcerers like this one, and accidentally have a TPK on your first turn, but generally that doesn't really happen most of the time. Most of the time. So, we have our bestiary. What else do we need? Well, since this is a journaling map-making game, you of course need your journal. I do not recommend this style of small notebook with the and it feels rather stiff when you try to open it. The next notebook I am going to get will be much larger than this one, and maybe just a bit larger. I do not understand why my paper is reacting like this, but I am going to change the map in the next video, but this is what I have. So, we have our journal, we have our map, we have our die, we have our characters. And when you do make your characters, you need to decide at least 1, 2, 3 characters to start, with the party maximum of being 1 to 5. You can start with 5 characters, but that is a bit to keep track of right off the bat, especially if it's your first game and you are keeping track of everything because you are the GM of this game. So you need to write stuff down so you can keep track of everything. And so speaking of writing stuff down, what are we going to do when we start our first turn? So before we start our first turn, let's go ahead and check to see what we need, if we have everything we need. Let's see. Oh, we also need to have the mausritter core rulebook because this is using mausritter's combat system. But if you ask me, I think it's system neutral, but don't tell anybody I said that. or do tell people, but I do think it's system neutral here. So let's see. We have our piece of paper, we have our set of dice, we have our list of monsters, a pen and pencil, a sense of adventure, and 1 to 5 characters, and I do believe that is it. So, for our party, we do need to select our party captain. Our party captain does things that not everybody in the party wants to do, but the entire party wants to do. Like, say, the party wants to spend a night in the inn, the captain would handle that, and any stats related to doing something like that would use the party captain stats and resources like that. Also, since this is a supplement and it is a solitaire supplement, every little supplement has to have, well, not every little supplement has to have, but something unique about it. But for me, when I tried to create this the first time, um, this the first time, uh, the first time I ran into a problem of not being able to, again, heal characters and things quite that often that you would expect, and so I came up with a couple of 1 or 2 gimmies for the player just to make it a little bit easier to recover and to help gameplay move along a little bit. The first thing that I came up with are flasks. Now, flasks are a catch-all potion. Um, what it means is that if something is broken, if somebody has a scratch, if somebody has a condition, if somebody has a nosebleed or some other ailment like that, the flask then, because you are playing solitaire, you do not have the benefits of a GM or the creative environment that brings. So the flask, it kind of takes that place. The flask says, here's a band-aid, here's oil for your sword, here's a patch for your leather garment, and here's a band-aid for your nose. That is what the flasks are. In principle, what they look like any health potion, except they have a bit of chaos magic in them, and that chaos magic is what allows the player to fix and repair and to heal and to do other things. Now, while the physical representation of the flask in the game can be a purple health potion, but it can also be a good berry, a sprig of mint, or a oil rag that they find, and they use that, and it does the same thing. But as the player, you need to reduce your flask count every time you use a flask to fix a problem. Now, as I was playing, as you'll see as I go through the turn order and some sort of turn uh, lore, you'll notice that I did not say that the flasks count as a ration. I want to say that I did that somewhere, but it is not coming to mind, so I cannot readily take that as a rule until I find it, but I am fairly certain that I may have not, because then you just have this random stash of food in your pocket from who knows where, and it can kind of be a little bit game breaking in that sort of sense. So, now you'll also notice that on the captain's card, there is another characteristic, and it is called guts. Whenever you want to be something, like a programmer, or like an artist, or like a blacksmith, what do? You look up stuff, you listen to things, you read, you ask experts, and you listen to stories, and you collect all that internal information, and you use it while you are exploring and learning about what it is you have decided to learn about. And when sometimes things go wrong, you aren't quite sure why things are wrong, but you do know that something is off, but you do not know what. You just feel something in your gut that something is not right. And in that effect, you may be able to change a thing or two that happens, but you just don't know why, but you are, because it doesn't feel right, and you think it would be better off if you did something else. So how is that manifested in the game? Say you enter a room of statues. Now, a learned adventurer that has heard several stories and hung out in inns and taverns, and even basically looked at the basic of journals and asked questions. They would know, at least some of them would know, that a room full of statues is not the treasure trove of a statue carving artist. They have stumbled in a Medusa layer, and they know they need to look down and grab their reflective items and mirrors and shields and swords and use those to look around instead, so they don't get turned into stone like everybody else. That then would be a part of the player's guts or the player's instincts. So, let's say the player is walking through that statue room, and the player goes, I don't like this. And they say, I am going to look down. And the GM would say, all right, I need you to make me a will save, which is an equal to or under roll. So using this character, that is a 13. We hit a 13, but let's say we hit a 12. And the GM would go, well, sorry, you do feel your fingers starting to atrophy and get a little bit stiff. And the player goes, no, I don't. And he's like, why not? Because I am not stupid. I know something is off. I know something is wrong, and I am going to change that dice roll. And the GM's like, are you sure? And the player has to then say, yes. You are not getting me with this dice roll. And the GM has to go, all right then, you do not. And that is what Guts does for the player. The player can use Guts at least once per turn for one roll. And that will be important later coming up when we want to decide where we are at on the map, because sometimes you want a settlement and sometimes you don't, because they are very, very good. They are like safe rooms or safe houses. So, that is Guts in a nutshell. And why Guts? Well, when I was playing Tunnels and Trolls, another tabletop RPG, they let you do saves in a similar manner, and they would say you have give your character a feat or an ability, special ability. You can call it whatever you want, but whenever you need to make a save, you can make any save against any special ability or feat that you like. And so you go, okay, I'll make shielding as my special ability. and then you would run into a similar problem, and you would roll the dice, and then you would add your special ability that way, and use your special ability and a special feat like that. And then, after a couple of games, I was looking at it for half a minute, and I said, wait a minute, you said that I can use any one of my feats and abilities? And the rules say yes. And the rules say that you can base it off of your highest stat that you have when you roll up your character. And again, they use a D20 or a 3D20 or a 3D6 system that can go up from 1 to 20 or 1 to 18. And that can lead up to some pretty high stats. And I thought, and I can name it whatever I want. And the game goes, yep, you can name it whatever you want. And when you want to make a save, you can make a save against your special feat. And I'm like, okay, I am going to name my special feat Guts. Because sometimes I see and notice things and it doesn't feel right, and I'm going to feel something in my gut that tells me that something isn't right, and I'm going to use my gut to fix that problem. And it worked, and it made me feel a little bit clever from doing that, because I got a half a dozen double stat boosting rings from doing that method, and I essentially broke the adventure module doing that. So that is why I added guts to this supplement, was because that was fun, and I figured it would work really well. And so far, from about 48 to 52 to 64 hours, it has been fun. So that is the rest of getting set up. Then we go through starting location and starting map features and checking our monster activity level for the map. But we're not going to go ahead and do that this turn or this video, because I've already done it here. But what I did start off with is this field of sunflowers. You don't want to eat the honey. And this glass lake here, which is in our way, that we can't go through, and our difficulty rating of 10. But we can go ahead. But because I've already done this, we can go ahead and we can, one of the best ways to learn, they say, is to go through a complete turn of the game. So let's go ahead and save starting features for later. This is our goal. This is kind of like a side quest or a separate goal that you really don't want to run into just yet, but if you want some extra points, you kind of do. So, what do we do on our turn? How do we get started? Well, first of all, we need to look around where we are at, because when we start, we have no idea where we are at, and whenever we enter a new location, we don't know what is in that location, so we need to be able to describe what is in that location first. So how do we do that? Well, I go through in an appendix in the back of the book. I go through how I write down this information. But everybody else has their own methods, but I am using my own method for writing information about a location. Now, we do not want a whole lot of information about a location down on a piece of paper. What we do is we want just enough to give us an idea of what is there. So what mausritter gives us mausritter does give us a handy dandy location generator sheet, and that makes it very nice and very easy to get location data for hexes. But since a point is like a hex but without a border, we can use the exact same method to figure out what is in a point. So I am going to interrupt my turn here, and we are going to say, because my turn in my turn this round, we are in some third-party content, and we want to figure out how to actually run or how to actually play before we get into third-party content and how to use that. So, I am going to say, let's see. Last time I did this, somebody pushed a button, so I will go ahead and use that exact same trick here. Somebody pushes a button and the party blinks out of the library. Okay, now, again, I give recommendations for how to write stuff down. Because we are doing this by ourselves, we do not need to be lengthy or wordy or have long dissertations about the color of the leaves in autumn. But what we do know is we do need to know a couple basic things. Now, for the setting for Mouse Crawl, I am essentially stealing from a supplement called the Northern Tier. It is a very excellent supplement. It is a very dense and detailed description of a place with lots of characters and excellent bestiary. And previously, I did have my own setting called Cinderwoods, which is basically the planet from Ragnarok. I think what it is, it's the junk planet where all of the stuff is coming down into one place, and that is essentially the setting. All of the things from all of the things that we like can all come down into this, and they all can work and they all can be used. So we can do essentially whatever and play in whatever setting and whatever era and whatever type of whatever type of lore that we like to play in, and we can do that with this setting. At least I think so. So we're gonna go ahead and assume that. So that does mean that I do change one thing about the hex type table. For the hex type table, instead of human town, I call it a highland location, and the highlands are like the high steppes and the high rocks and jagged rocky plains and jagged rocky meadows, and it's all bundled and jumbled and jumped and bundled together with bits and pockets of rock and trees and dense forests and thick forests and old growth trees and ruins here and there, and just a harsh environment that people have carved a life into for themselves and made a go of living there. So that is the setting where our adventure takes place. So let's see. Now, as far as map size, each little point I am calling them, they need to be at least the size of a D6. Why is that? Because with the dungeon generation that I use, The smallest dungeon room is the size of a d6, and using that logic, um, if we want to fit whole dungeon rooms on an A4, we can fit roughly a grid of 16 by 12 tiny rooms, what I'm calling them, uh, completely by themselves in a 16 by 12 grid. But it is a point crawl. There are no rooms to worry about. You can go to the edges if you want to, but maybe not. But given the fact that you should at least give yourself the size of a d6, or which is roughly, it's enough room, as you can see, to give some information about about a place and about maps. You can see I've had a lot of woods here, and I'm in the pines a lot. I've run into a couple settlements, but mostly I've been in the trees, with a couple of grassland areas around there. But again, mostly in the trees. And if you want to find, or if you want to give the tiles a name, you have a handy dandy grid system already laid out for you. A16, for example. A starting here and 12 going down there. So, we are out of the library. So, what happens? We are out of the library, back into the open air, and we have entered a new location, which is usually the first thing that the player does on their turn, because at the end of their turn, the player wants to move to a new location. So the first thing that they want to do on their new turn is to figure out what is in that location. Now, the player can choose to stay in a location, or they can go back to another location. But all in all, the player would generally like to keep moving forward to their goals, so they get more points that way, so they get a better score at the end of the game. The game does have a score system. I do not like it, but I don't know what's going to replace it yet, but I do have a kind of idea. So, for the benefit of the doubt, the first thing that the player has to do is enter a location, whether it means staying in the new location, or going back to an old location, or going to a new location. They are entering a new location, even if it's one they're already in. And because every day is a new day. So whenever a player enters a new location, we need to see what type of location it is. And then we need to give it a bit more detail, so we can see what is in there, and to see what we need to do next. So, the first thing we need to do is see what kind, just to see the broad picture, what kind of location we are in, just in general. This is a basic feel of the location where we are at. So to do that, we need to roll 2d6 and keep the lowest. That is a 5. That is a 5. Yep. Now, I could use my guts and switch this to a 6 so that we can have an island location. But that is not bad as well. So, in our campaign, in our hex type here, we have realized that we have run into a location with a river. So let's go ahead and grab our d6. Let's give it a little bit of a border. It's fine if points overlap each other. You just need maybe it is recommended to kind of clean them up a bit if you do that. So let's get that cleaned up here. Let's go get that cleaned up here, and let's go ahead and draw our river icon. If you are wondering that you might need to be a good artist before you can play this game, no, you do not. There are plenty of tiles, open source tiles that you can use to crib off of. You do not need to be an artist to be able to play this game. How you make stuff is perfectly fine. How you understand what is there, what works best for you, is what works best for you. Alright, now then, let's go ahead and get our river in here. I'm going to, the last river I did was crosswise, and so let's make this lengthwise. Now, as far as describing locations, first of all, in our journal, we are taking a new turn. Whenever we take a turn, we add we add 1 to the turn counter. So whenever our turn starts, we start a new turn, we add 1 to a turn counter, and when we start on turn 1. So let's see. I recommend if you want to keep things as simple, not simple, if you want to keep things have a bit of a smooth go through on your first game, you can go ahead and try to use the method that I recommend here. I am on turn 58. I was on turn 58, but because I entered a new location by accident, I am now on turn 59. We are on turn 59. Let's see what happened. Somebody pushed a button and they left the library. They are now in a new location. So it is a new turn. Also, at the end of every turn, it is a new day. And for each new day, your characters need to consume at least 1 point of rations each. So you need to go ahead and keep track of that. That when a new day runs or rolls around. So, I like to start off with, if I don't know anything else, I'd like to start off with, let's see. Let's say that you can use your creative writing how you like, but if you want to keep things smooth, generally one sentence works, and I do have a couple of recommendations in the back of the rules as to how I would describe these things. So we know whereabouts, kind of where we are. As for what else is around it, well, generally I kind of like to merge it with the rest of the terrain. So this would be in the pine forest area up here, But since rivers can be their own thing, and it can be just them, and they can go underground and overground and switch and swerve wherever they like, we can go ahead and just make something up or just ignore what's in this location. Ignore the rest of the location so things can be a bit smoother. Now, that's all fine and good. Let's give the location a bit more detail. So, how do we do that? We use mausritter's hex contents rules to do that. So, first of all, what is the biggest thing that we see? Well, the biggest thing that we see, we are going to see the biggest thing. And how we do that? We take a look at the landmark table. Let's see. Alright, and this is to give the journal entry a bit more character. So let's go ahead and roll a d20 to see what our landmark is, and we are in a river location. And we got a 9, which is an isolated island. Well, it would have been nice to know that before I drew the river, but we can still kind of, it kind of cheated in there a little bit. That's fine. That's fine. And no one will bite you for it. And, trust me, nobody will. So there's a little bit of an isolated island. Are the mice on it? Yes or no? Or is the party on it? Yes or no? Yeah, we don't know. So what else do we need to do? We roll a d6 and a d8, as the rules suggest, for detail. Now, why didn't I use my guts when I was rolling for a highland or not? Well, because the details tell us whether or not there is a settlement or a village there, or so that means whether or not it is a safer haven for the mice, for the party to be in. So, if you really need a safe place, you could use and save your manipulation feat for this roll. So let's go ahead and see what other things are in this river tile. A 1 and a 6. Now that means there is a settlement there, and we can say it is a hermit's hut. So, there's a little hut here, and now let's just say the hermit's not at home. Let's put him in the corner here. Let's put him in the corner here, and let's say he's not at home, and he doesn't really have much. So let's go ahead. Now, if you're using other third-party content, this would be a good place to, or another third-party supplement. This would be another good place if you wanted to interact with the hermit, or to see what's inside the hermit's hut, if you're that kind of person. But generally, it's a hermit, so he doesn't have that much, and it's not. And it would be nice to do this person harm. So let's go ahead and write that down. Let's see. Right. The players find a small hermit hut. And let's see. Anything else that we need to do? No, so since we decided that this was pretty open, we're going to go ahead and just call this a meadow or a plains type area. And we're just going to go ahead and call it that, just so that there's not a bunch of empty space around the river icon here. And just merge it with the pine area here. And since we don't know what's up there or down here, we just say that the river rushes underground. So, now that we know where we are, we have to decide, and we are going to decide what we are going to do with our movement. We need to see if there is an easy way out of this tile or this point. And we need to see if there are any paths leading away from this location. So, how do we do that? Each point and location has had 12 points leading away. I am starting to roll that they only have 8 directional points to ease clutter and to ease map drawing around the map. So, and I was rolling 2d8s to begin with, and I just kept getting cluttered and kept getting confused as to why there were 2 points going northwest and southwest. So I said, you know what? Just roll with it. And it's not been bad. I'm pretty sure this is a design choice that is going to stay. But like this other new edition, there can only be 5 paths leading away from a spot because there are only 5 characters and only 5 people will notice at least one path. So that's why only 5 paths can lead away from any one location. So how do we find paths? We roll 2d8 and pick the lowest, which in this case we have the maximum number of paths. Is it a 2d8 or is it not? It is not. We are rolling a 2d4 and picking the lowest. I figured something was wrong there. You would think I would know this by now, but even I and many creators consult their own rules from time to time because if they don't know what's in the rules, that's why they wrote them down. So let's see. How many paths? We got 2 paths leading away. Now we need to roll which direction the paths lead. And to do that, we need to roll a d8 for each location leading away. So now that we know we have 2 paths leading away, we need to roll which direction for each path. That is a 2, and it goes clockwise from north. North 1, 2. We have a path leading north, east, and we have a path leading 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We have a path leading directly south. And the players could take either one of these paths to leave this location and enter a new location, or stay in this location, or go back to a location that they have already been to. But we don't leave a location until the end of the day, until the next day, because it takes about a day to go through the location, because locations are roughly 1 to 2 miles across. So we need to. So now that we know which directions the paths are headed, we need to figure out what we are doing at this location in regards to movement. But now that we know where we are, we have to look around to check to see if we are safe. And if we are not safe, then we would have to fight a monster. To do that, we roll a 2d20, and then we pick the lowest. And I am saying the white die is the monster die, and the green die, well, the white die, I forget why, but we're going to go ahead and roll to see if we run into a monster. The lowest is a 4. We do not. But if it were, then the next die, then the die that was not the lowest, is the monsters that we need to look up in the bestiary to see which monster we are fighting. So let's go ahead and say this is this was 10. Let's see. If it is greater than or equal to the map's difficulty level, then we would have found a monster to fight. And a monster is haunting this location, and maybe that is why the hermit has left. There's some giant eyeball or thing there. So let's go ahead and say that the players find a monster. And how would we do that? Well, we would say, if we are done describing the location, we would then say, and I am calling these journal bullets. We would say in a separate bullet, the players look around, and unfortunately the hermit has an unwanted guest. And that unwanted guest, which is why he ran off, is a black widow spider. It's not a very difficult enemy, but it could kill a party member if they roll very high. So let's go ahead and write that down. The party sees a black widow spider on the hut. Now, as far as who goes first, mausritter has a highest dex wins, so either not a highest dex wins, the person who makes their dex save wins. And in mausritter's case, it is a d20 equal to or under, and because this is a party, we go at the pace of the slowest person. That would be our friend Timothy here. That would be his large hammer slowing him down. So the Black Widow spider, let's go ahead and roll to see if we notice the spider before she does. And unfortunately, we do not. So the spider is going to get to go first. and the spider is going to get to use its attacks and damage the party. But worry not, because this is an example turn, and we will kind of hand wave things away. So that I can show you how this game runs. So, what I like to do and how I have found the most effective thing to do is make another bullet point. Well, let's take our turn information first, and then let's add a bullet point. Now, to me, the most important things about a monster or an enemy like this for this game is their HP, their strength, and how much damage they can do with their basic attack. So for that Black Widow spider, that is 8 HP, 9 strength. Nine strength. And for their attack, it is a bite of D10. So, for right now, there is only one enemy in a enemy encounter. I do not know if I want to add more, but there is always a possibility that might change. So now, what happens? Because we are using mausritter, we use mausritter's combat system to do combat. So, what happens? What we write down is what a character does in a bullet sentence. So in the spider's case, let's see. What are we going to say? The spider was caught eating a let's call it a fly and angered. And now, since the GM has control over where the damage goes, so does the player. So the player can decide how the damage is split up among the party. Angered and bites the party for, let's see, their attack was a D. It's right in front of me, I don't need to look. For a D10. Let's go ahead and roll that now. 8 points of damage. And you can get creative with describing how much damage that the player does. It always helps to break things up. So, for, let's see, 8 bites at the party. Now we need to figure out how we distribute that damage. So let's see. Again, you're going to want to go with who has the highest health. I mean, you can do that, but somebody with the highest health suddenly doesn't have the highest health anymore. So let's go ahead and give some of it to Jacob here. Take down 4 points of damage. 12 minus 4 is 12 minus 4 is 8. And then the next person with the highest HP would be a Kettle, our captain herself. Let's see, that's 4 more points to go. Let's go ahead and have her take the rest of those 4. 1 for the team. So now she has 6 points left. Alright, that is damage distributed. Again, a mausritter has rules for when certain things happen, but we're not going to cover that in this video. So, it is now the player's turn, and what I am doing is I am saying that whoever has the highest dex goes first, and we go by dex, and to help me with that, I have added a new characteristic called turn order, and I haven't named it yet, but I have written it down in the corner somewhere, so I do not forget who goes when. 5, 1, 3, and 2. Now these party members have been adventuring for a while, and they have stuff that you might not see in the mausritter rulebook, which is perfectly fine. But if you're using supplements and you are using third-party content, you can get some of this stuff on your own. And because mausritter is perfectly compatible with some stuff, and just see what works and go from there. So the person who goes first is Kettle, and she has a medium axe, d6 or d8, whether or not it's one-handed or two-handed. I have been ruling that she has not been using it one-handed, but two-handed, because two-handed does more damage. So let's go ahead and keep going with that roll. And again, you can get creative with your hits if you want to, but you do not have to. So let's go ahead and say Kettle swings, and here we write down our here we take our damage. Ooh, that's a nice roll. Does 7. Seven hits. Now, HP, it means this is how much a character can take before they start to suffer very badly and ultimately die. But we don't have to worry about any of that right now, because the spider still has some HP left. What I'd like to do, because I keep it right here, that makes it easy to cross it out and add the new value right on top. Which in this case is 1. Also, there won't be any treasure table rolling for this turn, because the spider is not high enough for this adventure. So, that's 1 swing, and let's see who goes next. Ezekiel, or otherwise I'm calling him Easy. Easy just got an upgrade, and he got 2 nice twin silver sickles, and they do 8d8 damage each, and you can dual wield in mausritter. To dual wield, you roll 2 dice and then pick the highest. So that means a 2d8 worth of damage possible. So let's take our 1 8 and our other 8. See what Ezekiel does. Ezekiel does 6. Now, is that enough to finish off the Black Widow? Widow, let's see. That reduces HP to 0. So that means we have 5 hits to take care of. And since it has a strength of 9, a 9 minus 5, it now has 4 bits of streak left. And that was Ezekiel or Easy. Easy swings for 6 hits. And then the next player is a character called Jacob Sanders. He also has a medium axe, and that also does a d8 worth of damage, and hopefully that could kill the spider here, which he does finish off the spider. Sometimes we get to Timothy, and Timothy has a habit of turning things into a fine mist, but in this case, it was Jacob's turn to do that. Jacob, let's see, does 7, and turns the spider into a fine mist. So, that is how generally I run combat. So, during combat, each players get a combat action and a regular action. So generally, regular actions don't do much for the player unless they really think that it can do something for them. I haven't used them, but somebody else may find a use for them. But I have not found a use for them so far. Now, combat is over. Before the players leave, they need to check to see if anything or anyone is broken or has bruises. And I call that upkeep. And I call that upkeep. And again, like I said, there is not a whole lot that players can do to heal themselves. So therefore, I added the flask mechanic, and I also rolled that after each combat, the player finds an amount, or the player gets an extra amount of healing options, and to do that, we roll a 2d4 to see if we get any and pick the lowest. And we got a 1. We got 1 extra healing factor if we want to use it. But we do need to keep track of it and add it to our stock of flasks. Everybody wasn't beat up that badly. So we don't need to worry about any of that. That right now. And now, we need to see what the player wants to do about the location itself. Whether or not they want to leave, whether or not they want to go back, or whether or not they want to stay in the location. So, I had a mechanic in here called getting lost. When it happened to me, I had already described a location and created it and wrote it down, but all of a sudden something bad happened that was completely out of my control, and now I am completely somewhere else, and now I have to do all of that all over again, and that did not feel fun. So I'm going to go ahead and I will be changing that, but in the meantime, the player is in this location, they can decide what they want to do about their presence in the location. And if they decide to leave the location and go to a new location, then that would mean a new day has started, a ration must be eaten, and a new turn has started. So now the players would then have to, again, figure out what their location type is, and start to define their new location. So they can figure out what they are doing there, so they can figure out where they are going next, and so they can figure out where they want to do in regards to progress, to getting towards their goal. So, if the players want to stay in a location, you can say something like the players decide to stay in a location for the day, and but you have to deduct rations at a day counter and add a turn and add to the turn counter. The same thing with going back, except when you go back, you do not need to describe the location again. You can simply say they return to this point here, and they are in this location now. But if you decide to stay, and the next turn rolls around, then you would have to, because you have stayed in that location, you have to check to see if you are safe, whether or not you are haunted. And then you would need to decide whether or not you want to leave. And if you decide to keep staying, you have to keep checking and keep deducting ration points. And adding to the turn counter. And keeping track of those things. So, during after combat and during what I call player upkeep, I have been calling it in the evening, at dinner, or at the end of the day, or some other thing like that, just to give it a bit more flavor. And there you can decide to take rests, long rests, full rests, patch up the players, and patch up the equipment, and do a couple of actions like cast spells, or fix your gear, and other things like that, just to give the entry a bit more character and the mechanic a bit more character. So you can do that during player upkeep. So in the gist of it, that is how you play Mouse Crawl. And how do you win? You win when you reach one of your goals, and especially when you reach your goal on the map here that you've created for yourself. And that is how you win. We will go over that in a separate video. We won't be covering that now, but we will keep going on our little adventure that we started here. And we will see what happens to the party, and see what happens then. So, if you have enjoyed, go ahead and push those buttons. I will be playing the game at least 1 hour per day. Whether or not I make a video or not, that's besides the case. So, I will keep you updated on the adventure of the mice and the player and what I am doing. And hopefully, eventually, we will finish this game together. So, until next time, I will be seeing you, and I hope you stick around and follow along on this adventure, and maybe follow along on your own adventure. Um, because that is basically the rules. There are a bunch of what ifs in the rulebook, but that is the basic idea of how to play. And if you want to support me in continuing to make this game, I have links in the I have links in the description, and you can also go to the bestiary at an underworld understudy at itch.io, and I will see you next time.